Hello, beautiful vegans. Welcome to Empowered Vegans, a show that inspires and empowers vegans. I'm super excited today. So, first of all, let me tell you who I am. Mariquita Solis. If you can't roll your R's, I am an vegan empowerment coach, really showing you to step into your power. And that means mentally, physically, and all the aspects, right, of you. Let's rise those up. Let's lift those up for this new year. So, and it's on you. You can do it. So, thanks for joining us. Let us know who's watching in the comments. I see Susan and Angela are here. Welcome. And we have a wonderful, empowering guest today, Dr. Scott Harrington. Dr. Scott Harrington is here, and I'm super excited because he's going to answer all of our questions about vegan health. And I'm even thinking, like, how can we do it? How can we be vegan? And what if we mess up? Oh my gosh, what if I just ate something that wasn't vegan, right? And Dr. Scott, and we can ask him, what do we have to do? How much contrition, or what is our penance if we mess up, right? Can we let ourselves be? Can we let ourselves go and forgive ourselves? Or what do we need to do? Do we need to run 20 laps around the gym? Right. So Dr. Scott is here to answer our questions. He's a family medicine and lifestyle medicine physician dedicated to optimum health and wellness. He completed his education at West Point Military Academy and the Philadelphia College of Osteopathic Medicine in 2003. And so in 2012, he adopted a vegan diet, and of course, his health improved. Yes. So he is here to inspire others and to let us know that veganism it's possible, and not only possible, but you will thrive on a vegan diet. So welcome, Dr. Scott.
Mariquita, thank you so much for having me here on Vegan Empowerment. I'm so excited, and I just can't wait to give my talk. And there's going to be plenty of time at the end for answering questions. And so I'm just so honored to be here.
Well, thank you. Let's get to it. All right. So let me pull up your screen. And here we go.
Okay. I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to go full screen. So I won't be able to see you, but you'll be able to see me and hear me. So yeah, today we're going to talk about the vegan diet as food as medicine. And at the end, this talk used to be called if I'm vegan and I'm still sick, now what do I do? That's what it used to be called, but change the title a little bit because, vegan people still get sick. Sometimes you need a vegan doctor. I am a vegan doctor, primary care, family medicine, and you can see me online. I have an office in Pinellas Park, Florida, which I see people on Fridays, and I accept insurance, Aetna, Cigna, TRICARE, Medicare. But if you happen to not be in Florida, or in Tampa area, you can see me through these 16 states, and you can just see me through telemedicine. So let's start the presentation. As you know, the vegan diet is well known as a diet that can prevent and reverse common illnesses. And we're talking about blood pressure. We're talking about diabetes and being overweight. And but what happens if you started the vegan diet and it all hasn't kind of totally worked out for you? So that's what I'm here for, and that's what we can talk about the questions at the end today. So what does the science say? Well, one of the biggest studies that demonstrated a comparison of various diets was the Adventist Health Study 2. And what I thought was so powerful about this study was that, one, it's an ongoing study, and they've reviewed 96,000 individuals. They're following 96,000 individuals with various diets. And in the study, they found that omnivores were 4 times more likely to have high blood pressure and 5 times more likely to have diabetes. And what I like about the study is they call it the dose dependent. There's a dose dependent relationship with the problems. So BMI represents weight. And so you would see that the more animal foods you're consuming, the higher your weight. In terms of high blood pressure and diabetes, you see the odds. If you're comparing the odds against the non-vegetarians, the omnivores at the top, there are the odds of 1 or 100% of them, based on that, compared to the rate at which the omnivores had high blood pressure. As you get more and more vegetarian and vegan, you have a lower rate. So like for instance, for vegans had only 25% or a quarter of the odds that they would have high blood pressure, and even less for diabetes. And so, yeah, you can kind of think about it. The less animal products that you eat, the less obesity, diabetes, and blood pressure that you'd have. Okay, so we know Dr. Esselstyn and Dr. Ornish, they both proved that you could reverse coronary artery disease, and which causes heart attacks. It's the #1 killer in the United States and many industrialized countries, which is clogging of the pipes around the heart. And so we know that this can happen. We used to didn't think this could happen. We used to thought, oh, once you have this, it's sort of a death sentence. So whole food plant-based diet was proven to reverse this. We also know that it can reverse even severe obesity. Here's someone, Richard Hubbard from Healthy Living Connecticut. He has a blog and does podcasts and things and talks about weight loss. And because he had lost with a whole food plant-based diet over 150 pounds and kept it off. So we talk about these amazing things that the vegan diet can do, but I joke around the expectations versus reality. So you'll hear stories. That's one of the problems of the internet. Before, you used to just compare yourself to the Joneses next door neighbor, and you would compare yourself to, or maybe your friend circle. But now you've got the whole entire world, social media to compare yourself with. So when you switch to the vegan diet, maybe you had an expectation because you saw someone online have these miraculous turnarounds in health. So I call this the unicorns and rainbows situation. However, so what is reality? What is reality? Well, if you haven't just recently stopped antacids or something, if you stay on the same course, when you stop eating a high-fat processed food diet and you switch to a vegan diet, a whole food vegan diet that's low in fat and high in fiber, you should basically be cured of heartburn. Heartburn should go away. Now, there's other problems that could affect it, like if you just recently stop antacids and your acid's really flaring, stuff like that. There are caveats to this, but heartburn should basically resolve unless you have other problems like bad hiatal hernia or something. Constipation, it can take almost up to about 3 days, but if you start eating a whole food plant-based diet that includes fiber upwards of 50 grams per day, constipation is cured. And honestly, this is what happened to me when I switched in 2012 to the plant-based diet. I basically, up until that point, I kind of had some lifelong constipation, mild to moderate constipation, but boom, that was completely changed. If you're not eating foods that are constipating, that have zero fiber, like cheese and meat and stuff like that, and the only food that you're consuming has fiber, you're going to cure your constipation. You'll start noticing weight loss after about a week. And then some of the inflammatory conditions like rheumatoid arthritis, even osteoarthritis, the wear and tear diagnosis for the bones, people start to complain less of these inflammatory conditions, joint pain, morning stiffness, things like acne and asthma, believe it or not. So some of the big culprits when you're switching or just even for vegans themselves is the salt, oil, and sugar, the SOS. And these are in highly processed foods. If you look at the salt and the sugar, it almost looks like, drugs you would see on TV, like powder, cocaine powder, or some kind of druggy thing. It is a drug-like food, and it's problematic. For one, because it deadens the senses. So this is an illustration here where you have On one side, you have very bright and vibrant fruit that's pictured. And what this is sort of suggesting is that natural food should taste really delicious. You know, the mouthfeel, the flavors should be just amazing to you. The ambrosia of the gods, you know, the fruit, this should taste amazing. But if you're used to a lot of really salty, really sweet foods, it just might not be that exciting to you, and it's kind of dull. And so this is where we talk about the retraining of the tongue that can happen after you kind of desalt your diet or desugar your diet. You can get back over to the delicious tasting fruit. Okay, so let's talk about salt. I have a little saying about salt, that salt is one of the ways that they can make, they can, sorry, I just lost my train of salt. Salt is one of the things that causes you to crave food. And you've heard about the stories of, you know, once you pop, you just can't stop, like in potato chip ads, where it's almost like a berserker rage or like a mindless eating, because once the salt hits your mouth, it quickly goes away and it leaves you with this feeling of wanting more. And so with the salt, I use the analogy of that you're on fire. That you can be all of a sudden, if you realize that you're almost like in a binge-like behavior, you're almost like you're on fire. And what do they say when you're on fire? You have to stop, drop, and roll. You have to get out of there. You have to escape the area. You have to put down the Pringles potato chips, for instance, you know, drop them, and you have to get away and you have to reflect. And I know this is kind of over-exaggerating it, but it helps you to realize the strong power, the drug-like power that salt has on your body. Stop, drop, roll, and reflect. I was just eating under the influence of salt. So, okay. One of the things is, you know, they talk about the vegan diet or the whole food, plant-based diet with no salt, oil, or sugar. So, yeah, so this is the idea of being processed, and ultra-processed foods as being not real foods. There's problems with them. There are problems with the processed foods, and these are kind of obvious, but the nutrients have been removed and the grains have been refined and there's less nutrients and it's unsatisfying. So let's take a quick little tour of the nutrients of corn versus corn chips. Okay, so what we're seeing here is that there's more protein in the corn versus the corn chips. There is way less fat. So, and, you know, double the fiber. What's interesting here is you see the red, there's no vitamin C and 83 times the sodium for 100 calories of these corn chips versus corn itself. So, and look at that potassium in the corn, the regular corn, like so much potassium. And this will really come into play in the potassium sodium balance with blood pressure. Foods that are high in potassium and low in sodium make you have better blood pressure, and things that are high in sodium and low in potassium, they cause your blood pressure to go up. Okay, some key factors here with the whole food plant-based diet is when we talk about carbs and grains, and people are kind of scared of grains. And there's certain aspects to this, certain truths to this, like grains that are really highly processed are problematic. They get absorbed really fast. And so the body has to deal with a big sugar spike once it gets absorbed. And so, but not all carbs are created equal. And when you're talking about the grains, here's something from one of my favorite dietitians, Brenda Davis. She's vegan, or she's plant-based at least. And I'm assuming she's vegan. The whole grain hierarchy, where it's the more and more processed, you'll see it goes down and go to the red, and the less processed is green, you know. So where you have like oat groats or whole intact oats or quinoa or barley, just an intact grain, that's ideal. But then the next level is oats like that have been cut up, steel cut oats versus rolled oats versus shredded wheat versus being turned into flour and pasta versus flakes. Flakes are very bad, like the corn flakes, because it's been ground down, fiber's been removed, turned into a mash, and then dried. So the particle size of the grains are really small, and they get really quickly absorbed. And even smaller is the puffed wheat, puffed rice, popcorn. These actually get absorbed really fast, and it might be one of the reasons why people kind of feel bad after they eat, a big thing of popcorn. So one of the things I've been doing lately is I've been cooking oat groats. And once you go oat groats, I don't think you'll go back to regular oatmeal. It just feels like the texture is too mashed and yucky. So I really got to hand it to Dr. Greger. He had mentioned this thing about the oat groats, and so it got me on it. So you use a pressure cooker to cook the groats, and they taste great. Okay, so what happens if you have gone plant-based and your weight is not budging? Your weight is not budging. There are a few tweaks here that you can do. First off, make sure you're eating totally plant-based. Try to avoid the cheese that creeps in and this kind of thing. And the next level to look at is, am I eating unprocessed as best I can? Am I eating whole foods? Does it take me a long time to consume it? Or have I just ground it down into like a smoothie and I'm drinking my calories really fast? I know there's smoothie diets and things like this, but if you're that's one of the ways to try to slow down the calories is by making it whole and unzuzzed down in a blender. Are you trying to be good about the salt content? The salt, like I said, you will be eating under the influence, where you begin having binge-like behavior with your food, not intentionally. There's caution foods. Caution foods are like Dr. McDougall has a traffic light system where he has green light, fruit, vegetables, and most carbs that are unprocessed. Then he has yellow light foods, which are healthy, but they're high in calories, like nuts and nut butters, avocados, dried fruit, even things like tofu, which would be yellow light foods. So these are kind of caution foods where if you eat too much of them, you can bust your calories for the day. And Dr. Greger, I mentioned Dr. Greger once already, so it's the second time I've mentioned him. He has something called the 21 Tweaks. So we'll go back to that, the 21 Tweaks. He has his Daily Dozen app, and in the app, you can go to the 21 Tweaks. These are the things that he learned from the book, How Not to Diet. And he talks about these various tricks that you can do to try to lose weight, even that are evidence-based. So take a look at the 21 Tweaks. But one of the biggest of those 20 tweaks is the idea of the timing of our food for weight is the later it gets into the night, the more problematic the food is due to our circadian rhythms. So you want to try to center your meals in the day and earlier in the day as possible, like breakfast and lunch, and then have really small dinner at night if you're trying to lose weight. Because 100 calories in the morning is worth less than 100 calories at night. Your body stores more fat at night, and it's true. They've proven it. So once again, there's some of the 21 tweaks. That's just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them. And let's talk about cholesterol. One of the things that I was really impressed with after becoming vegan and then being a doctor for vegans was that I expected the cholesterol to just be rock bottom, just to be super low. And what I found out is that even when people do everything right they're not consuming cholesterol by eating animal products, but still they can have kind of elevated cholesterol. And what gives? Well, the body makes all the cholesterol you would need. And I just assumed that evolutionarily, we were eating such high amounts of fiber that we were losing cholesterol through the bile, through our GI tract, basically. So I think we're evolved to produce a ton of cholesterol. Now, the things that increase cholesterol in a vegan's diet are saturated fat, because saturated fat is what clings, it messes up the receptor that clings on to cholesterol and pulls it back into the liver for processing. So saturated fat messes that up. So indirectly raises your cholesterol. Where do vegans get saturated fat? We get it from palm oil that's in nut butters a lot, and we can get it with coconut oil that they put in fake meats and cheeses. They put it in vegan ice creams and this kind of thing. So saturated fat is problematic. Even olive oil has a little saturated fat. So trying to kind of defat your diet and watch out for saturated fats that are solid at room temperature. A lot of curries, Asian and Indian curries, will have coconut oil as a base to make it creamy. And so if you bring it home in a bag, you bring it home in the take-home bag. If you take it out of the fridge and it's like solid, you know that it was loaded with saturated fat. A couple of things is the fiber. Once again, we talked about how the liver produces bile, which has cholesterol, and bile is in our system, gets reabsorbed by our intestines to absorb fatty nutrients and things. Well, the more soluble fibers and plant sterols that you have, the sticky fibers like flax, okra, eggplant, oats, beans, these things that kind of have a gel surrounding them, these will cling on to the bile and you basically pass them through your GI tract. So that can lower, high fiber diet lowers your cholesterol. So, and the last one on here that's sort of sad, sad face, frowny face, is coffee. Coffee will raise up your cholesterol a little bit, 5-10 points on the LDL, which is problematic. And so coffee is sort of a minor sin, but there's been mixed reviews about coffee, but it's probably bad for you because of keeping you up at night. There's been some mixed reviews on increased longevity with coffee, so I don't want to badmouth it too badly, but that's one of the things. If you find that you're anxious throughout the day, if you find you're having trouble sleeping, and you have high cholesterol, it might be a good idea to try to wean yourself off. Okay, so this is the last one that we're going to talk about. So we're going to be winding down the talk here. And this is about blood pressure. So this tends to be a problem as you get older. But when you go on a vegan diet, it should reverse. It can take a little while if you have long-standing high blood pressure, maybe a year or more. The biggest culprit for blood pressure is salt. The kidney has to deal with the salt, and the more salt you have, where salt goes, water goes. The body has a harder time excreting and managing the water if you have a high salt system. So trying to desalt your diet. One little trick, if you are eating a processed food and you can see how much salt is in a food, try to eat less salt than the calories per serving. If you kind of imagine about a 2,000 calorie diet, if the food is higher in calories, the salt is higher than the calories, you're going to bust 2,000. And they recommend, American Heart Association recommends about 2,000. And if you have like blood pressure, like say 1,500 or even, very low salt. So I recommend to eat as low salt as possible. Stop drinking alcohol. Alcohol is a depressant. But when things wear off, you get kind of more excited and agitated, and the blood pressure goes up. So it's alcohol's a problem. Alcohol's a devil's sauce. In general, it's bad for you, causes cancer, and it's bad for your blood pressure too. Animal protein. Once again, we want to be vegan, and one of the reasons why we want to be vegan is that animal protein causes more filtering problems for the kidney, and the kidney is in charge of making your blood pressure, monitoring your blood pressure. So stop putting more pressure through the kidney by not eating animal protein. So what can you do? You can eat high nitrate greens, especially arugula is a big one. Believe it or not, butterleaf lettuce is a big one for high nitrate levels in the greens. These things cause nitric oxide production and dilate your arteries. So high nitrate greens, some of the things like collards and even kale and stuff like this is good. You can look online to see which ones have the highest nitrates. One little trick on this, and this sounds weird, is you want to avoid mouthwash because the microbiome in your mouth help to transform the nitrates that you eat into the nitric oxide in your system. Last two, flax have been actually there has been a placebo-controlled trial with a flax muffin versus a normal muffin on blood pressure, and flax lowers your blood pressure. So try to get 1 to 2 tablespoons of flax per day in like a smoothie or on your oatmeal. Fruit has high potassium, and vegetables do too, but high fruit intake is associated with a lower blood pressure. So those are some tips. Those are some tips if you're vegan and you have high blood pressure. If it's overpowering, first thing, or overwhelming, trying to switch your diet, maybe you've eaten as an omnivore for 30 years and 40 years, and it seems overpowering. You got to believe in yourself. Belief in yourself. You can do it. There are lots of people online like this channel, and you can, get help from your friends and see things, recipes. You can do it. And if you need a doctor, if you have a medical problem, get a doctor who gets you. You can see me, Dr. Scott Harrington at Vegan Primary Care. And you can do it through telemedicine. I'm in 16 different states. We are actually doing a 6-week health transformation from January 29th through March 8th, where I will meet with folks periodically 1-to-1, and we'll also have fitness coaches, and we'll have food chefs that will give information about vegan recipes, and we'll do glucose monitoring, lots of fun stuff. The 6-week health transformation, Vegan Primary Care. And that is me, Mariquita. There I am.
Right.
I'm ready for questions.
Okay. I'm looking at the comments. We've got Susan Fabricon is here, and she's saying she's from Philadelphia, where you attended DO school. Yes. I love it.
All
and
right.
JJ's
Susan.
Here. Go ahead. Go ahead.
All right, yeah, Susan. Yeah. I loved being in Philadelphia. Philadelphia is a big medical school town, Jefferson, several others. And so I love living in Philly. Unfortunately, I don't have a license in Pennsylvania. It's a little bit harder. They do tests and things and expensive. So I wasn't able to keep that license.
Well, I've heard wonderful things about Philadelphia, and Susan, I love to see you on here. Thanks for watching. And JJ's here, and she interviewed Richard, which I think I might have watched that. I can't keep up with all these wonderful shows, right? JJ's she's got a great channel, Vegan Knowledge. So, and then we also have our lovely, let's see here, Angela. She just said, she created a post about our broadcast and shared. Yes.
Yes. I'm glad that Angela is here. Angela Fischetti is a great fitness coach, and she is going to be featured on our 6-week health transformation. And so we'll have once a week with Angela. And so she is great. She's very inspiring. She's a plant-based powerhouse, and she reversed her osteoporosis. So she's super inspiring. And so I definitely want to highlight Angela. And if you don't see her through my course or whatever, go over to Boomer and Beyond Wellness and check her out.
Definitely. She's got a great YouTube. She's on Facebook. I mean, she is, yes, a powerhouse. I love her energy. So beautiful. And then we got Deb here who's saying, thank you. Yes. Thanks for watching, Deb. I'm very inspired by everybody that's watching. And I have some questions. So everybody put your questions up if you have any. I know I was talking to Dr. Akil, one of my friends. He's here in Atlanta, Dr. Akil Teher, and he talks about constipation and that's kind of like a sign of heart disease, or I guess, can you expand on that?
Absolutely.
I guess, because I'd love to hear more about that. I know that, with the standard American diet, things don't flow very well. You could, right? We're not meant to eat that, right? And the processed foods stay in our body what's a dangerous period for that, for foods not coming out?
Well, this is a huge topic. I did a talk on it, the scoop on your poop. By researching for that class, my mind was blown because of the idea of the microbiome. And fiber kind of has this. It's not fiber is not king in terms of like what people talk about. Everyone's talking about protein and carbs and fat, and no one seems to really give fiber its due. It's but fiber is very important for the system, not just to move your stool along, but to feed your microbiome in your colon, which takes the soluble fibers, takes those soluble fibers and breaks them down and turns them into short chain fatty acids, which is an anti-inflammatory compound, and it has lots of effects. And so that is what really blew my mind, because one of the things that got me singing the vegan diet from the mountaintop was when I first became vegan, I thought, okay, it's going to help with, blood pressure, diabetes, and weight. Okay, that they all sort of make sense, lower calories, lower salt, and all this stuff. But diseases like asthma and rheumatoid arthritis. I mean, if you would tell the average doctor off the street if the vegan diet could cure asthma, and they would just say no, no, that's impossible. Or, but so what we think is part of the reason that we're thinking is that these short chain fatty acids from this high fiber diet that's created these anti-inflammatory compounds. So, and they even go into like depression and things like this that just seems like they would have no relationship. So you can hear my voice and my excitement about it because we're going to learn more and more, and it's just going to be hopefully more and more obvious to all the omnivores out there that they need to decrease their animal products and stop if possible. One of the things that when you switch to a vegan diet from an omnivore diet is that there's a percentage of your meal that is made up of foods that contain zero fiber. So, if you imagine, that you're displacing the fibrous food in the calories of your 2,000 calories. So that just makes sense that you're going to increase the fiber content of your diet. The goal, Americans maybe get like 12, 15 grams of fiber, but we want you up there like 50 grams. So it's really important. And it makes you feel so much better. You heard that T-shirt, go vegan, take epic dumps or whatever. You're really evacuated and you feel great. You feel like 100% lighter. And the biggest thing that people worry about with the fiber is bloating. And there is a significant there's a change. Like when you're eating a high fiber diet, you feel more satisfied. There's like so much food in your stomach that you feel satisfied. And a little bit of bloating and satisfaction, they kind of go hand in hand, honestly. Like, I'm not saying for people to be uncomfortable and everything, but like Dr. Clapper says, enjoy it. If you're bloated, enjoy it. I guess what he's trying to say is that you're full and you'll eat less in the future. Other studies have shown that if you eat a high fiber breakfast, basically you eat less at lunch, stuff like that. So
that makes sense, definitely.
Yeah, there's lots of angles I could go with and talk about it, but for fear of just keep droning on and on, I want to turn it back to you so that you can ask another question or redirect me.
Right. Well, let me ask you this. So when what caused you to switch over to vegan, whole food, plant-based? And then what did your colleagues and family think about that?
Yeah. So what happened to me is I'm actually still a reservist in the U.S. Army. I'm in the medical corps, and I was active duty at the time. And when they're active duty, and still now, I have to take running tests and push-up tests, a physical fitness test. And I was eating a standard American diet, which I thought was healthy, but I was gaining weight 1 or 2 pounds a year. By the time I was 35, I had, needed 15 to 20 pounds I needed to lose. And so I told myself, I'm going to do what I tell my patients. I'm going to try to eat less and exercise more. I'm going to try to starve myself with small portions. And it doesn't work. It's like impossible. You can't like try to starve yourself. You'll fail because you'll just get hungry eventually and binge out on some, food. So I kind of got depressed, and it was that I went into this sort of, I failed. Then it basically pulled the blinders off my eyes. And then I started to look for other things to do. And I knew that keto was not I knew that wasn't healthy. And so someone who I was working with, a special forces guy, was like, hey, you should learn about this plant-based diet. And so I watched the movie Forks Over Knives on a plane. And by the time I landed, I was vegan. I was convinced. I was ready to make the switch. So it wasn't like normally the messages roll off like water off a duck's back and you're just defending your views or whatever all the time. But I was ready to hear the message. And so I was really lucky that I was in that spot because I was able to make the change quickly. And because I made the change quickly, I was able to see the results really fast, and it solidified the message, and then most of my family and friends just thought I was crazy, like, wow, my God, that's just, you need protein to, oh my gosh, but once you become convinced and the science matches up and you see other doctors there taking people off their medicines, and, so I experienced it on both sides, and I saw it clearly. And we've got science on our side. So there was no going back, basically. Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah.
Wore people down. I wore people down, and I showed them the awesome meals, and eventually my family's gone vegan and that kind of thing. So friends, it's been a good ride.
I love your story. And you were ready, right? We never know when somebody's going to be ready to hear the message, right? And we can't get discouraged. We just have to be there. Like, you're the example, right? And you have all the science to back it up. That's one thing that's really important, that we become aware of the science. When someone is saying, oh my gosh, I've got this terrible inflammation, right? And I got terrible asthma, like JJ, she cured her asthma, right? With the whole food, plant-based diet, right? So we have to be little scientists too, to get ready to help others.
Oh man. Yeah. The vegan thing. So initially I was plant-based, I was just doing it for health, but when, the ethical aspects of the diet and how our food affects the environment and, animals' well-being and that sort of thing, all of these came to me, and I just realized that everything lines up. Being vegan, I don't want to hurt animals, and I don't relish in harming other beings. And, the fact that animal farming has such an impact on the environment, and the rainforests are being depleted for cattle farming, and there's so many reasons. So it's really easy to sort of say, and claim that, I am vegan, and I want to be vegan, and I want to be as vegan as possible. And, so that is one of the parts of the journey, where however people come to it, whether it's through animal suffering, wanting to end animal suffering, wanting to draw attention to it, or whether it's through environmental aspect of how our world is warming. So, and I can help people with that if they ever want. I talk them through it. But help as a doctor, the health is usually the way that most doctors get into it.
Yeah, but everything is tied to this. I mean, to veganism. I mean, the minorities and the suffering of minorities, and it encapsulates everything. So it's so important that we learn. I mean, I really am focused on animals and the earth and the impact of the earth. So yes, exactly. I love what you're saying. And Deb was saying that too. She said, thank you, Dr. Harrington. It's so important to emphasize the ethics of veganism. Yes. Amen to you, Deb. And Deb has a question here too. And I want to know this answer. Is plain air popped popcorn okay?
Well, all foods are okay. I mean, you don't want to put too much I don't want to demonize food for food's sake, because if you're starving, that popcorn is amazing. So but it's all about trade-offs, because if you're putting the popcorn in your mouth, you could be putting kale in your mouth. So compared to kale, popcorn's horrible. So, but yeah. So yes, if you're going to be eating popcorn, plain popcorn is better than buttered popcorn, and it's better than like weird. They have like these weird toppings that may have MSG and various salt flavors. So some people will use nutritional yeast. As a vegan, you can do nutritional yeast. The hardest part is getting it to stick. So I've heard that you can take like a spray bottle and just like give it a light mist or something but ideally you're not using oil or a plant-based butter, because it just makes it really fatty. I've heard some people make zombie popcorn with chlorella. It's like a green powder. It's algae powder. It's green powder, but I don't mess with a lot of those algae powders. I know that some of them are contaminated with lead and this kind of thing. So, but I haven't heard that chlorella. I've heard that chlorella was basically safe, but yeah. So popcorn itself. So popcorn is the lowest on that whole grain hierarchy, that Brenda Davis's whole grain hierarchy. And so, yeah, you will get a quick sugar spike in your body with popcorn in general. But I mean, are you overweight? Are you having problems? This sort of thing. You might have a little bit of food freedom if you're not really dealing with weight and this kind of thing, and you want to eat a little popcorn every now and then. No big deal. It's vegan and that kind of thing.
Well, good. That's good to know. Definitely. And so what do you eat for snacks? What would you recommend? And what, like maybe for snacks and desserts?
Okay. All right. Sort of the standard snacks is like fruit is for dessert. That's a Dr. Furmanism, I think. Fruit is for dessert. And sometimes I'll eat dried fruit like dates. I really love dates because they're so intense. They're triggering for some people though, because you can eat a bunch. But when I'm sort of hankering for nightly eating and like watching TV, which is a bad habit, but if I just can't fight my craving, bananas. If I'm really, I guess, doing bad, is bananas with some peanut butter, because that's really high calories. But one of the things I found is really satisfying is the frozen cherries. You can get frozen cherries and have them in the fridge, and they kind of take a long time to eat, because I'm getting old now and my teeth, it's like when I bite into cold things, I'm like, oh, I'm cold. But yeah, you can kind of suck on them and chew them, and they're really yummy. There's nice cream, but I found that nice cream, churned up bananas, maybe you can add a little cocoa powder. Nice cream is great, but I find that it's kind of a pain to make. So for convenience sake, I don't do that very often, but it is amazing. Popsicles, or you can get fruit popsicles, and that's, vegan for dessert. But for snacks, I try to snack on fruit. Sometimes I've done like those like nori sheet kind of seaweed kind of things. Let's see, what other snack foods. Just like a typical day for me is oatmeal or oat groats when I do the
what's an oat groat?
An oat groat. So on the whole grain hierarchy, you've got rolled oats. You've got the instant oats, which are kind of ragged and all torn up. Then you've got the rolled oats, which is better. Then you've got steel cut. Then you've got an oat groat, which is just an entire oat that's solid, like an intact grain. And they don't have them at the stores. You have to kind of buy them online. And then when you cook them, it's nice to have a pressure cooker, an instant pot, and it just makes it a little easier. And you just store a big bunch of them in your fridge, and then it's just a nuttier, kind of more textured, and it lasts longer. It's less glycemic index, slower on the glycemic index. And once you go groat, it's hard to go back because of the texture thing. You're like, oh, this is like, I'm really chewing through something. With fruit, Sometimes with nuts, I usually put flax on there. And then if I'm really getting excited, I'll put some oat milk or something on there. But that makes it a little higher calories. But
Yeah.
for
Those
lunch, I always try a salad, a big salad. That's the green routine. The green routine. The most nutritious thing we can eat is greens. I don't hanker for greens. I'm not like greens. But I try to make sure and eat them as like food is medicine, and then try to get crazy with the non-oil dressings. So
yes,
citrus, vinegar, mustard, those agave instead of honey. You could do like an agave, but I usually resort to lemon or lime juice with some herbs and stuff for a dressing. And then dinner, I have a little saying for dinners. If you're ready for this saying, it's Mangia Monday, some sort of Italian or like Greek, Mediterranean. Taco Tuesday, so some sort of Mexican inspired tacos, burritos, enchiladas, or whatever with beans and rice. Wok Wednesday, so sort of Asian inspired food, Thai, stir fry, rice with veggies, that kind of thing. Or Indian style, like chana masala or something. Okay, Thursday is Thankful Thursday. So if you think Thanksgiving meals where you get the veggies on the side, the roasted veggies, that kind of thing. Fun Food Friday, which is like veggie burgers or some sort of frozen or packaged type of meal. If you're just Friday, you want to not have to cook a big meal. Social Saturday or a soul food Saturday where you make like a picnic potluck style meal. And then soup or bowl Sunday where you make a soup or like a big lentil shepherd's pie or a big chili or something that you can, minestrone soup that you can eat as leftovers throughout the week. That's dinner time.
Well, those are great suggestions. I love that. I'm gonna have to go back and write them all down. Definitely. And
Yeah.
when I remember when I went to Body's exhibition, and I was shocked to see the stomach was not very big, right? And I think about that, right? Like when I'm being mindful, then I think, oh, well, I'm full. I mean, but like I think about how it can really be expanded, right? And how do we get it back to that? If our stomachs are already like here because we've just been like, how do we get them back?
Yeah, well, I mean, I wonder how much a stomach can expand or stretch. It has kind of this folded appearance, and it can stretch a little bit. But I mean, my assumption is that the stomach stays about the same size. I might be scientifically wrong about that or whatever, but I don't think you have to really worry too much about the size of the stomach. No, but there's stretch and this kind of thing. So there's stretch receptors and nutrient receptors, and so people, when they eat like a Thanksgiving meal, they get that bust a gut feeling like I just can't eat another bite, that. So your stretch receptors are firing, but believe it or not, one of the aspects of feeling full is whether your intestines are full. And so this is like you're only as full as your colon, so to speak, or your intestines, because they're going to send off hormones, this GLP hormone that causes fullness a little and causes you to eat less. And that's the whole fiber full breakfast, less lunch kind of phenomenon. But this also goes to speak to that new injectable medicine, the GLP-1 medicines, the Ozempic, Wegovy, semaglutide, Mounjaro. These medicines work on the GLP-1 fullness hormone, and these are the things that are becoming the blockbuster medicines nowadays that are helping people lose weight. But you can get it with a vegan diet by eating really, really high fiber and very bulky foods that make you feel full.
So start off with the oatmeal like you are, the groats. We got to find groats. And I think Deb says that she said, I think my local nature grocer sells groat oat groats packaged in the bulk section too. So I'm excited to go look for groats.
Okay, well, I mean, groats is cool. Groats is cool, but you don't have to stop there. You don't have to stop there. I got the idea for groats from Dr. Greger because he talked about his brol bowl. His brol bowl is barley, rice, and I think he might have used a wild rice, oat groats, and he used lentils. And then he's even talked about calling it brols for sorghum. And so there's other things like buckwheat, and so you can add any of these whole grains and stuff and put them together. But like the big, large grains like barley and oats and I just find they're kind of chewy and yummy, and buckwheat kind of breaks down a little bit. And then there's like the quinoa style. This is sort of the round ball. This is like the teft, the amaranth, quinoa. They kind of have this, and they are almost more like cream of wheat consistency because they're really small and they're kind of but you don't have to do just oat groats. You could do any of these, and they have a lot of that soluble fiber and insoluble fiber, and they really fill you up, and they have that really low glycemic index because they're whole.
Well, that's good to know. What about tofu? Tofu scramble in the morning.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, do you really want to stick to the same meal every morning? I mean, it gets boring. So yeah, it's fun. You can have more of a savory breakfast. People talk about, there's the Well Your World savory oats. They have like a savory oat thing that looks really good. Tofu scrambles. These are all really healthy for you. I mean, especially if you're including some greens, especially with it, get greens in the morning. That's a good start. Tofu is kind of one of those that's a little bit higher calorie density. And so if you're trying to lose weight, you kind of want to like be mindful of the portion size with the tofu a little bit. But I mean, that's splitting hairs, so to speak. I mean, in general, first you're trying to switch to plant-based, and just switching to plant-based, even if you're eating like tofu and stuff like that, usually results in weight loss. But if you've hit sort of a plateau, you can kind of look how many mornings, how many times a day am I eating tofu and that, or a fake meat or cheese, and you kind of can bring that down.
Right. Okay. Gotcha. And let me ask you this. All right. So with diabetes, how can people not know they have diabetes and end up just like losing a limb and saying, oh my gosh, how could they not know ahead of time? How can it go from not knowing to losing a limb? Does that happen?
Believe it or not, it happens. Believe it or not, it happens. But it is kind of more rare because normally you'll have some heads up. Normally, I mean, if you go to the doctor once a year and you get blood work, hemoglobin A1C is a long-term blood sugar test, a 90-day average. And so you'll get, I mean, if you see the doctor at all, if you're not in total denial or total avoidance of all medical, you'll probably have had it, you'll get a clue ahead of time. Or some other clues, some things that would precede somebody like losing a limb would be things like numbness and tingling of the feet, where you'd be like stepping on things and getting wounds, or stubbing your toe and not feeling it and noticing you have this huge wound on your foot. Hair loss along the lower part of the leg, and trouble with your vision and this kind of thing. People would maybe seek the eye doctor because they're having such vision problems, and then getting a clue, oh, it looks like these changes are consistent with diabetes. And so people usually, but I have a patient who is young and got type 1 diabetes, didn't know it, and got cataracts and went totally blind before she even knew she was diabetic. So, I mean, there's stories that you hear that would blow your mind. But yeah, don't be afraid of the doctor. Get a plant-based doctor. Or someone who's a lifestyle medicine doctor, and get some tests and make sure. If you're worried about something like that, we can help. Okay,
great. I'm knock on wood. I'm not worried. I'll knock on my hand.
You don't have to worry too much when you go plant-based. If your body is looking healthy, then you probably are healthy.
Right. And you can turn it around. Let's say you're really, and you've just had the standard American diet your whole life, how long would it take for your body to turn around if you go, I mean, if you're very dedicated?
Right. We talk about the problems. On one of my slides here, we talk about things, like the heartburn can go away almost immediately, and constipation 3 days. Weight starts a couple of days, like a week. 6 weeks for some inflammatory processes like asthma to improve dramatically, acne to improve. But even with acne, let's say the amount of new lesions you would get would really decrease, but then you still have the acne scars. The scars for a long time, and that may take a year or 2 years or whatever. So things like with the blood pressure, and blood pressure usually improves like 6 weeks. It really starts to improve a lot, but it can take up to a year or two. And some patients, I've been unable to have them totally reverse their blood pressure, just like maybe reduce some of their blood pressure medications. In those studies where they reversed coronary artery disease, they would follow up at like 1 and 2 year follow up. And so, but just like you break a limb, just like you have a huge wound, you see the body repairing. It's a living tissue. And so even in the vasculature, living tissue, eventually things kind of can heal and improve and resolve. So there's hope. That's the biggest thing with the vegan diet. There's hope that even if you have some significant disease, that you can improve.
Well, that's what we need to know. I mean, just eat the greens, eat these whole foods, and the fiber is so important. Exactly what you're talking about. Yes. And so I see that we're coming to the end of the hour. So I want everybody to know, and please hit subscribe if you're watching, and give us a thumbs up. Do you have a channel, Dr. Scott?
I do have a channel, but I since I stopped doing the live videos, it's not a lot on there right now. But if you ever need to look for stuff, you can go on veganprimarycare.com. I also have Instagram, veganprimarycare.com on Instagram too.
Okay. And so where people can find you there, and is there anywhere else? Where can they find you?
Yep. Once again, veganprimarycare.com. You'll see at the top of Vegan Primary Care, the website, there's my phone number, and the phone number is to our office, but you can text that. So that's an easy way to find out quick information about the practice. And then I have the Instagram post, where sometimes I'll post on Instagram. I'm also on Twitter, vegan primary doc, DOC, because care couldn't fit as a Twitter handle or something. So there's that. And there's Facebook, of course, too, Vegan Primary Care.
Great. All right. Well, this is so important, all this wonderful medicine. I mean, it gives us hope. I'm sure we all have a lot of family that are still eating standard American diet, a lot of friends. And so this is very important to know who we can direct our family to. Dr. Scott, here he is. So yes, and this has been very informative. Thank you, Della, for watching, and Deb, and everyone. I mean, everybody that's watched, and thank you, Dr. Scott, for this amazing information. I feel very hopeful again, and I'm going to be looking up these groats and barley and all these other things you said. I'm mindful about what I'm going to be eating for the rest of 2024 and onward, right?
Oh man! All right. I love it. It changed when I tried the groats. I liked them better than oats. The only problem is having to make a big batch once a week. It's kind of a pain, but.
Well, it's going to be some new adventure for me, like the barley and all these other millet. And I have a bunch of that stuff sitting and I'm like sitting in the cupboard, and I'm like, oh, is today the day I'm going to cook it? But now I'm inspired, right? I'm going to get brave. I'm going to get the barley and these things that I don't even know what they are out of the cabinet, and I'm going to cook them. So
just throw them in the Instapot, and it, even if it kind of, once you put it in the fridge, sometimes it comes out as kind of like a brick of stuff, and you kind of have to scrape it off, but you heat it up, it's delicious.
Sounds good. And my little dog loves to eat plant-based too, so he'll be eating that too. I'm glad you said that about the flax. So yes, thank you so much. But we've really learned a lot here, and well, everybody, check out Dr. Scott, and I hope everyone's healthy, wealthy, and wise here. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, everyone, for being here.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.